Patricia Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I think it's important to point out that we in the SNP accept that there are some real advantages to the consumer in switching to a smart meter and to smart meters in general. However, that does not mean that I stand today to suggest that the rollout will be trouble-free and that I have no concerns about it, because that wouldn't be true. Before I proceed, however, Mr Deputy Speaker, I would like to point out that I accept the Minister has been receptive throughout to concerns expressed by myself and others across the House, both at committee stage and beyond, and I thank him for that. I know he is keen to get this right, as we all are, and I thank him for his listening, consensual and constructive approach. In the past, I pointed out to the Minister that I had concerns. In the past, I pointed out to the Minister that I had concerns about aggressive selling, which is, I believe, as I've said earlier on tonight and beyond, as a result, and certainly at least not assisted by the fact that Ofgem has the power to fine energy companies by up to 10% of their annual turnover if they fail to meet their licence conditions. And one of the licence conditions is for each energy company to install smart meters in consumer homes by the end of 2020. Failure to do so can result in a massive penalty for the energy company. So, this being the case, aggressive selling starts to make more sense given the pressure energy companies are under to deliver smart meters to consumer homes by a rather tight deadline. And I continue, Mr Deputy Speaker, to detect a level of suspicion and scepticism from far too many consumers with regard to smart meters. And I hope the Minister at least understands and accepts that there is both a conflict and pressure which the licence conditions place on energy companies to roll out smart meters by 2020, and the resultant pressure this can place on consumers. And I am sure, if I can continue in this vein for a moment more, that the Minister will, like me, be disturbed to have learned of recent reports of energy companies employing salespeople to go out and proactively sell smart meters to consumers. If these reports are true, Mr Deputy Speaker, these salespeople can earn commissions of more than £1,000 per week, which mean bonuses which are twice what the average worker earns in a year. Can the Minister see that this may lead to overbearing and aggressive doorstep selling, which can put consumers under pressure? And does he share my concerns with regards to this? And if so, what steps can he take to address this? Cold calling is such a discredited way of selling, and one that puts undue pressure on consumers, particularly the vulnerable. And does he think this is an acceptable way to proceed, given the rewards that sales reps can earn if they persuade enough people to install a smart meter? Is using target-hungry salespeople to chat on the doors of the elderly and vulnerable the most desirable way we can think of to roll out smart meters? I would be extremely disappointed if the Minister and indeed Ofgem thought so. We know that doorstep energy selling has been left with a very poor reputation after a series of investigations by Ofgem led to suppliers being fined millions of pounds for misleading customers over how much they could save. And this, of course, has resulted in between 2011 and 2012 all of the big six suppliers scrapping face-to-face sales practices. Yet now, Mr Deputy Speaker, we have smaller energy companies once again sending staff to knock on doors. Is the Minister entirely comfortable with this? And what reassurances can he offer to consumers and vulnerable members of our communities that they have the protection they need from such companies? The Minister will also be aware of concerns about misleading letters being sent to consumers which suggest that smart meters are compulsory and not optional. And I wish to put on the record today my thanks to the Minister for sending me samples of letters which have gone out to consumers from various energy companies in order to reassure me. However, very few of those letters sent to consumers by the companies concerned, very few point out that smart meters are optional and that the customer can refuse to have one. All power companies from the sample of the largest suppliers say absolutely nothing about smart meters being optional. Does the Minister think that is acceptable? And is he, like me and trading standards, concerned about this And if so, what action can Ofgem take to address this? And what is going on, Mr Deputy Speaker, with the "you have been chosen for a free upgrade to a smart meter" type letter that some companies are sending to consumers? I wish all consumers were aware that usually when a business tells you that you have been specially selected, it means that everyone has been specially selected, so the term becomes meaningless. And also another old favourite is "you are eligible." That too is misleading, since everyone is eligible. Why is it that if we all have the option of having a smart meter, some companies feel that it is honest and in order to tell us that we have been specially selected or eligible? Does the Minister have any concerns about this way of misleading customers?
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. I was trying to attract her attention while she was mid-speech, but the type of sales proposal that she's mentioned is totally unacceptable. It's not within the regulations, and if she would like to either write to me or see me with specific examples, I will take it up with the regulators myself.
I thank the Minister for that response to my query. I have to say, though, that this information that I am imparting tonight is from the letters the Minister himself has sent me as samples. So clearly there's sharp practice going on by some energy companies. I wouldn't say all, but some of them. They're certainly not saying that smart meters are optional, and they're using language like "you are eligible" and "you've been specially selected," and that is not acceptable. I will indeed.
Does she share my concern that very vulnerable citizens out there might fall foul of some of these things? And one of my constituents, Mr Vetsa, ended up with no electricity for 3 years because he didn't want to have a smart meter installed in his house, and due to a misunderstanding had his electricity cut off, and he was so fearful of getting in touch with the power companies that he's been living without electricity for 3 years.
Well, I'm sure that the Minister will have been listening very carefully to that, because that is the kind of extreme example that some vulnerable consumers can find themselves in, and I know that the Minister will be keen to investigate that, because it simply is not acceptable that vulnerable consumers are left in such dire situations. But the Minister knows that I have real concerns about the mythology being sold to consumers that smart meters are free, because that really needs to be addressed. They are not free. We are all paying for them through our energy bills. And I want to know, Mr Deputy Speaker, why is this not being communicated to the consumer? I know the Minister and I don't see entirely eye to eye on this, but if there is no intention to mislead, why is the consumer not being told that smart meters are not free, in the sense that anybody normal would understand the term? Free means it costs you nothing. Smart meters are paid for by all of us through our bills. And I've already said earlier in this different stage of this debate that the cost of smart meters is £11 billion and rising. And we've talked about how Smart Energy GB has referred to a government cost-benefit analysis. But that is a figure, that £11 billion is one that I am particularly concerned about, and I know that I will not be the only person in this House monitoring that figure very closely, because I fear it may rise, and this goes to the heart of consumer confidence. But I wonder, what is the harm in energy companies communicating to consumers clearly and effectively about the costs that they will incur if they when they get a smart meter, if there is no intention to mislead? And I would be very interested on the Minister's reflections on this. But some of the letters I have seen from energy companies about deemed appointments, they actually seem very pushy to me. And other energy companies seem to be saying that letters sent to consumers, that because one energy company in particular have sent a letter to consumers saying that because smart meters are flawed and won't work if you switch, they won't work if you switch energy supplier. So therefore, when you get their smart meter, you should not switch your energy supplier. That's what I call the cart pulling the horse, and I would wonder what the Minister thinks of that. I know Ofgem talks about the deemed appointment system being acceptable, but I don't agree. Consumers must ensure, Ofgem says that suppliers must ensure that they are compliant with the wider regulatory and other legal obligations, and that suppliers should monitor consumer experiences. But I wonder then what Ofgem would make of letters which tell people that once this particular energy company installs your smart meter, then it really is not advisable to change your supplier because it won't work. The Minister is well aware of my concerns and the fact that out there many people are extremely suspicious about smart meters, not because these people don't want to have greater control over the energy they use, not because they don't want to know which appliances are consuming high levels of power in their homes, not because they wish to put estimated bills behind them, and not because they don't wish to see the energy they are using in real time, but because of the hard sell, the misinformation which tells them they do not have a choice when they know that they do. With reports of target-driven, sales-hungry cold callers, all of these things will do nothing to dispel that suspicion. It will only increase it. Now, I end where I began. Despite everything I've said, there are benefits to having a smart meter. But as I've been saying for a long time, the government, the energy companies need to ensure that consumers are at the very heart of this process. Consumers need to be on board with this by getting access to the correct and accurate information they need. Misleading information will only further alienate the very consumers who could potentially benefit most from smart meters. That cannot be good. Energy efficiency is extremely important, and never more so in households which are struggling to make ends meet, where fuel poverty remains at 78%. Smart meters can help people take measures which may help them and their households to have greater control over their energy consumption. That's why we must get this right, and we must take consumers with us. And I fear we have a long way to go, given some of the concerns I have raised. And I urge the Minister, and from my past experience of him, I know that he will reflect further upon these very real concerns and do all he can to address them.